Hello and welcome everybody to the latest edition of Planted Unearthed. My name's Sam Peters, I'm one of the co-founders of Planted, the first contemporary design show aimed at reconnecting cities with nature. One of the things we loved when we heard about Stormboard, Archie, was the fact that you guys get basically really low-grade waste plastic, I think I'm right in saying, although hopefully you'll explain it in better terms, and use it again. And so that board is made of recycled plastics, which Stormboard have put together in your factory in Frome, and that will stay with us. It won't go to landfill. We've made commitment to that. We can pick that off the wall and use it at every show in the future.
And it can be left outside in the rain and it won't rot or degrade.
Fantastic.
Like the wooden products would.
Absolutely. I mean, it's a brilliant product. So could you tell us a little bit about the genesis of Stormboard, Archie, and you know what you guys do?
Yeah, so Stormboard is a company that was started back in 2017 using technology invented because Nick Stillwell, who founded the company, saw that there was a huge amount of waste plastic and wood rotting out in Haiti during the disasters out there back in 2010. And he thought there must be a way that this plastic can be used to replace the wood. And he's an expert at plastic moulding and came up with a process that is called the P2 process technically, that we use to make Stormboard. And it enables mixed co-opted waste plastic that others can't use with high levels of contaminant in it, be used to produce a long-lasting alternative to plywood. So our boards are stiff and lightweight and easy to cut because they've got this mixed plastic in them in the middle of the core. So we've got 15 millimeters of crap plastic, excuse my language, with 2 millimeters of slightly better grade plastic on the outside. So hence the beautiful finish you see. But if you could see the inside, you'd see all sorts of different colours of plastic, shiny bits which are crisp packets, are easy to cut and last forever. So they can be used to make shelters, exhibition stands, building site hoarding, all sorts of things.
I love the fact that we've got crisp packets in our signage of the first ever Planted show. So can you give us, you're talking about crap plastics, so would crisp packets would fit into that bracket, would they?
So
what else could be in there?
So the critical thing is that, I won't get technical, we take things called polyolefins, so the cosmetics bottles, bottle tops, that sort of thing. That's got to be 70 to 80% of our plastic. The remaining 20 or 30% of what goes in the boards can be pretty much anything. I mean, we've made boards with whole toothbrushes in them, toothpaste tubes.
Whole toothbrushes?
Cigarette butts can go in there.
Fantastic.
But it all just needs to be mixed up right with enough of the right sorts of plastics. That means we can take carrier bags, crisp packets, cosmetics bottles, soda bottles with the lids on, all sorts of things that other people can't use can be chopped up and thrown into our system.
So we're obviously people I think especially perhaps in the last 5 years or so, certainly Hugh Fernie-Whittingstall's War on Plastic, something that's drawn attention to it. A lot of obviously Attenborough's work has drawn attention. There seems to be a real, it's entered our psyche now that plastic, single-use plastic especially, is a big problem for the planet.
Well, it's funny you say that because when Nick invented this system, we weren't thinking about sustainability. It's massive, big positive now, and he was wanting to make use of waste plastic, but he thought there's all this cheap waste plastic that should be able to be used commercially and put to good use for a product that will outlast wood, and therefore there should be sort of commercial value in the system he invented. And it's been such a great thing to see over the last 5 years that our boards are sort of really seeing a whole new sort of interest in them because they are using these really problem waste plastics. I mean, we can take waste from beach cleans. So beach cleans happen and sadly that plastic is often completely useless to people because it's mixed plastics and no one knows what to do with it. And it's just picked up by Biffa or Viridor and goes into the normal system and quite often we put into landfill, haven't been taken off the beach. We have in the past taken beach clean plastic and had it processed and it's gone into our boards. So we sort of really can make a difference in the way that other people can't because we take, as I said before, really low grade plastic.
So you could essentially clean a beach and turn that beach waste into a sign saying please recycle and take your waste home with you.
Yeah,
but I mean,
exactly.
what other applications does the plastic have, and what other things could you do with it once you've changed the process?
Our boards are used from industries as diverse as construction through to high-end design companies making furniture. So they're used for building site hoarding because they outlast the wood and plywood there. They're used for exhibition stands like this, but by others as well, because new exhibition stands are up for 4 days, and the MDF and plywood used there is just thrown away at the end of their life. What I haven't said yet is our boards are actually 100% recyclable by us after use as well.
I was just going to ask you that question.
Even if they're painted or have laminate put on them or finished to look like wood, people can do that if they want to with a layer. Those boards and any offcuts that are used in the process of making something from our boards can be sent back to us, and it makes ideal feedstock. We don't mind if there's a sort of laminate layer on top of it or paint on it, because our process is forgiving. We can take it back and make it into new boards.
It's a fantastic product. I'm actually excited listening to you talk about it, because something that it's just so sad to see this plastic detritus everywhere that's choking our seas, getting into the food chain potentially, and breaking down, and we don't really know what the long-term effects are going to be, but certainly the short-term effect and medium-term effects are obviously very negative. So this is a great solution, really.
I mean, it's a great solution in terms of the use of these problem single-use plastics, but also our boards have a lower carbon footprint than the plywood as well. So plywood, though there's great schemes for making sure the wood is grown in forests that are sustainable. The wood is still grown in South America, let's say, transported to India or China, and then put through the process to be made into plywood, which is energy intensive, with chemicals that are added to the plywood, often transported to the UK or the end market, and then used and then thrown away after a single use. So think of the carbon footprint involved in that. Whereas we just use plastic from the UK, it has to be processed in the UK, put into our boards in the UK, and then used, and then they can be used multiple times for multiple things because they won't degrade over time because they're plastic, and then at the end of life they can be given back to us. So our boards are only a sort of solution to single-use plastics, and then not having a commercial afterlife, hence them not being recycled properly, but they also have a lower carbon footprint than a lot of the alternatives that are used instead of our boards.
I love the fact that not only are we going to be able to take this away and use it time after time after time, but when we feel that it's perhaps not polished enough, or it's reached the end of its time, we can send it back to you. We'll ask you to create a new one for us, and the cycle, it's almost like a cycle of life, isn't it?
An exhibition stand 1 week, building, hoarding for the next 2 years, and then come back to us and can be used, I don't know, for sort of outdoor furniture at a kid's school or something.
Yeah,
exactly.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, I'm absolutely delighted that we're working with you, and thank you for your time today. I mean, just finally, perhaps we could touch a little bit on the recycling process itself and the challenges that you guys face in actually getting the product to you. I mean, what?
Yeah. Well, I mean, I think it's also important for lots of people. So the world of recycling, everyone's frustrated often with the confusion of home recycling.
Yeah.
And admittedly, the recycling of plastics is a confusing world and a complicated world.
Yeah.
So one thing we're very proud of being able to do is take plastics others can't use. So there's bit of information for people. There are 2 different schemes with labelling of plastic that people use at home. There's the triangles with the numbers in them that tell you which type of plastic it is, and that is very useful information when recycling, and you should be able to match up the numbers in the triangles to the information from your council, and that will tell you what can and can't go into your recycling. And then there's the quite often misleading sign of the 2 interconnecting arrows that look like it means it's recyclable, but that will nearly only ever be prevalent on items that aren't easily recyclable, because it shows the company that is making them is donating money to causes that enable recycling. It does not mean that these products are recyclable. However, we can recycle that plastic if it can be got to us, but that involves a lot of logistics and transport, but we do take that plastic. So we work with an excellent waste processor who takes plastics that are otherwise deemed unrecyclable. They will bother to clean them, do a little bit of separating of them and granulate them, and then they will get that plastic to us so we can use problem plastics that aren't part of people's normal recycling and make them into boards. So in our boards, I think we use bottle tops. Plastic straws are a smaller thing now, they go into our boards. Cosmetics bottles with labels on that can't go off them, that all goes into our boards. And over time we'll recycle hundreds of tons of material that would otherwise have been landfill or be incinerated.
I mean, you don't have to, but I'll call it for what I think that is. I think that's that circular label, which appears to me as the consumer to be I've always thought, until we discussed it before we started this interview, I thought that meant it was recyclable. So I'm just looking at a bottle, it's got a little circle on it, so I'm thinking that's easily recyclable. I mean, it feels like a con to me.
I would say that the simplest thing, if you can't find the triangle, is to simply look at the product, and if it looks like a single plastic, that is most likely recyclable. If it looks like a mix of different plastics, then it is likely that would be difficult to recycle, that might contaminate the recycling. It's a sort of very vague rule of thumb. If we're looking at something and thinking, I'm not sure what that's made of, where do I put it? I would say put it into the non-recyclables, because any contaminants in the recycling do cause more problems than they're worth.
Interesting. And then we get just finally, if I could, Archie, just talking about the sort of future of this idea that we can now market, or you can actually advertise your product through almost like the paucity of the quality that's going into. There's a sort of bizarre irony or mirror in there, and you know, I mean, do you see yourselves now as a business, as an organisation, really trying to push this message out that you are able to take single-use plastic and use it again and again and again?
Yeah, and it's I mean, it's a message that we are using in our for our business, and it's getting real traction. I mean, we are in the process of setting up various different take-back schemes and closed-loop schemes with businesses who will get consumers to put their plastic into bins and return back to them / us, and it will be processed and made back into boards that can be used for. I mean, there are people who are doing take-back schemes and making bins for more plastic put into, made out of our boards.
Nice.
Some of these schemes we're working on at the moment, the boards will be made to make outdoor furniture for schools and things, because our boards can be made into a little play kitchen for kids in a school playground, and it will be left outside, and nothing will happen to it for years, and it'll look great. And when it's at the end of its life, it can be given back to us and be made into new boards. So, yeah, we really are finding that companies are interested in this whole closed-loop circular issue.
Yeah.
And we sell our standard boards to people, but we are developing our closed-loop board capacity when people with scale waste plastic they don't have to do with, that can be collected and processed, got to us, and then it can be sold back to them in our boards, and they can make use of them however they choose.
Fantastic. And that is a great story. It's I love the fact in many ways it was slightly, I hope I'm putting words in your mouth, but almost by accident that you've come to this, but commercial forces have driven it, and that's a good thing, that you guys are seeing this opportunity and hopefully taking it. And from Planted's perspective, we were so delighted to be steered in your direction, and clearly this is a product that we're proud to support, and really grateful for you guys for working with us, and we'll certainly continue to use, because we think the board looks fantastic. Factory settings have cut it, and they connected us with you, and we're delighted that we've come to meet you.
To your point about our system not being created, well, sustainability being a new part of what we do, I think it's sort of a broad point about recycling. I think it's really important that recycling is done at scale and in a way that is commercially viable, or else it won't make any difference. So there are lots of companies that sometimes want to work with us and use it, not quite as greenwashing, but we really try and drive companies who want to work with us to do things at scale. We don't like making 50 boards for a huge FMCG company and them to say something they've done something recycling. We want them to do a long-term project and